This is your degenerate power hour. Your late night golden shower. Too ill to be sick. So thick you can't split that carnival spin. With the rictus grin. I'm Joel. He's BMO.
Christ.
And this is Vagrants and Vandals Radio.
Could you showboat that open anymore, please?
I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, once again we're joined by Jason, and we are coming to you today from the masturbatory.
Oh yes, we are.
All right, so let's get into it.
I cleaned
fellas.
it up for you, boys, so don't worry about anything dripping on you.
It's nice that you mopped it up in here. Yesterday, BMO sends me a story. A man in Italy catches a 9-foot catfish in a river. A true river monster. So, I mean, my question is, Jason, you're a fisherman.
I am.
Allegedly. No.
There's no alleging. I do fish.
What would you do if you snagged something like that and you actually reeled it in? Like, where would your mind go?
Well, in fairness, I don't know that. I did see that news story, and I saw the picture and stuff, but a lot of those guys are fishing for catfish. I don't know if that was a Wells. I think there's a species called the Wells catfish. Yeah. Was that what it was?
I'm not sure.
Because those get incredibly large. So I know that it was New World record, but not by a whole ton. So like it's not unheard of that catfish of certain species will get that big.
But still, though, I wasn't aware that there was fish that fucking big out there in fucking channels and shit. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Actually,
that's terrifying. I don't care what species it is. That's irrelevant to me.
So there's certain sturgeon species, not the kind we have here in Lake Erie or the Detroit River.
Those are big, though, too, right?
Yeah, those will top out. I mean, if you get one, I'd say 6-7 foot long would be the biggest, and they can be 130 pounds at most.
They get real old too, like 100 years old too, right?
I'm not sure the exact lifespan, but they live a long time.
Because I remember those
decades.
people in the Detroit River caught one, and they said it had been around like when Detroit was founded.
Yeah. I think
I don't know how they know that, but
there was a DNR. I remember a photo from a year or two ago. I remember the guy laying next to it.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how old they estimated that fish to be, but I do know they can live a long time. I don't have the exact figures in front of me.
I could have swore they said like 130 years, 140 or something like that. Like it was ridiculously old. Like it
could be.
It had populated the entire river like multiple times with its offspring over that amount of time.
Yeah, the sturgeon have made a huge comeback, especially in the river.
Can you eat that?
You can. There is a very limited season on them, and we've never targeted them, and I don't. I know people do. People can eat anything. You can eat anything once.
What would you need, like in terms of a line to reel in fish that size?
Fish of that, I have no idea. I mean, like the biggest species we target is salmon, and typically the largest salmon, we're expecting run to is like above 20 pounds. I mean, the state record while we were up there one year, I think it was 44. They had just broken the record, 44 pounds. So we run, it's typically, if I remember right, I think it's a 50-pound braided line, I think. So, I mean, just because something weighs, even if you could pull something in, it weighs more than that.
Yeah.
It's just, 50 pounds of resistance or whatever the line's rated to hold up to. But no, I mean, it'd be a hell of a struggle. I mean, just the weight alone for going, it's trying to get away from you has got to be a lot.
I can't imagine. Now, if I was swimming and something that size broke the surface, brushed up against me, my lizard brain would immediately go to it's some sort of lake monster. Get that? And I mean, honest, something that size. Not that they're preying on humans, but it could misidentify you as prey.
Like a little kid, like your son that was just up here, 9-foot catfish swallow that motherfucker whole.
Some of these catfish could take us in their mouth without a doubt. Not to say that they would target somebody like that, but I recall there were stories of possibly people in India going missing in one of the rivers, and they were thinking that maybe it was a catfish.
Really?
Because and I don't know if it's the Ganges River. I can't remember, but there's one river where they'll take their deceased and they dispose of the remains. So they started thinking maybe the catfish
Got a
got
taste for it.
for it.
Fish
I
got
don't know.
gorged
He's like,
on the
"Ooh."
corpses.
Yeah, so there was there was people. It might even been that show River Monsters that Jeremy
Yeah.
Wade
Yeah,
went
like that.
down
Good
to,
show.
if I remember right. But yeah, no, they get very big, and they could, their mouths are large enough to take in
That one in
a
that
person.
picture looked like it. Like you like swallow your leg up.
And you'd be amazed at fish will consume and go after things that are like half the size of their body, and eat them.
Now,
Like,
do those big ones have the barbs on them like the?
I would assume.
little ones?
I think all catfish species do.
I feel like
so
that
it's
barb
not.
would
It's
be
not
like
the
fucking huge.
the barbs. I think or the barb. No, the stuff on the front, the whiskers. Is that what people usually call the barbs? I
I
think.
think so.
I think that's
Yeah,
technically
whatever.
barbs, but that's not what stabs you. It's the front fin on the lateral side, the lateral sides of the fish.
All right,
That's got a spike in it that can stab through your hand.
You think if a catfish that size, quickly came up, gobbled you up, do you think you could fight your way out?
Yeah, I don't think the fish would have a great chance of digesting you. Like I think you'd do major damage to it.
Yeah, just start
So-
grabbing organs and shit as you're going down, just grabbing shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing it couldn't swallow a human whole, so you'd be in.
I think it could get you inside of it,
Yeah.
but now I think
How erotic.
I mean, I think it would have a hard time. Like it would have to be like a corpse or something. Somebody who's just lying there
lifeless.
waiting to get.
Well, I'm curious. So once inside, if let's say your foot gets stuck in its throat or something, obviously the fish at that point is going to understand I have fucked up.
Fucked up.
But is it at that point even capable of trying to spit you out, or are you just in fighting it? Or are you just going to drown?
I would say your biggest risk would be of drowning,
Yeah.
not of being consumed by the fish itself.
You and
'cause-
the
Yeah,
fish
what,
would
what do
both
you got?
die.
2.5 minutes, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the
At
bigger
absolute max?
concern, and
I'd
how
say
quickly,
less, because-
and how deep water you were in.
Yeah, you're expelling energy fighting
Right,
the thing, and you're
right.
probably in doing so maybe taking inhaling or something.
yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either way. So
Well, let me tell you guys a situation where I once thought that a true monster was about to take me down. Jason, do you remember? This would have been summer. I want to say summer of 02, maybe 01 or 02. We're up in Ludington. We're on the pontoon boat. It's me, you, Sarah, and our cousin John. And for a number of years, I had wanted to swim to the bottom of Hamlin Lake.
mm-hmm.
So the four of us were in the water. We, the anchor was down, so the boat wasn't going anywhere. And we decided all four of us were going to go at the same time. We were going to attempt it anyways.
Right.
So we begin, and my thought was, well, just to have some semblance of where we were, let's just follow the chain from the anchor down. So we all start to swim. No joke. I watched Johnny.
Yeah, he barely ducked his head, if I remember right.
That he ducked his head. And
yeah,
he went right
was
back
like,
up.
Yeah.
So we kept swimming. Sarah was the next one to peel off and go back up, so that was just me and Jason. And it was getting cold, and it was getting dark, and it's hard to say how far down we were. But then I saw Jason peel off, and I was like, oh, God.
I remember getting to the rope portion, or the actual chain. Wasn't it the actual chain?
It might have been.
Because the last few, I don't know, so many feet of it are actually like the chain. And I remember getting to the chain, and that's when I took off.
Yeah, so so a split second, I thought, my instinct was like, I better go too, but I was like, no, I think I'm close, because the water was cold.
Right.
So I kept swimming. Now at this point, I'm running out of breath. So I was like, you know what, I got to speed this up. So I actually grabbed the rope or the chain, and I started pulling myself down. And then all of a sudden, out of the murk came something really large. It looked like it had a triangular head. Now, this was my brain filling in blanks.
It was probably the anchor that you pulled
And then
up
a
from
lack
the
of
bottom.
oxygen in the anchor.
It was mud that had been pulled off the bottom of the lake as I was
Right.
pulling. But seeing it in the dark,
Yeah, it
and
would
just
be
this
scary.
swirl, my initial reaction, I immediately dropped it, the rope, chain, whatever, and pushed back and started booking it. soon as I did it, I realized what it actually was and regretted it because I was like, I had to have been within feet of the bottom.
Yeah.
And I've never attempted that again.
Yeah, so in Lake Hamlin, I know more of it because, me and John go on it, and he's got, like, every graph and everything.
Yeah.
So, there's a trench that runs through the middle of it, and it'll get 60, 70 feet deep.
Damn.
But where we would anchor off at and swim was on the flats. And, I would guess it's at most, like, probably 15-ish, maybe 20 feet at most where we were at.
Yeah, I've looked up a map since of the depths of Hamlin Lake, and it does have a fair amount of variance. But, yeah, the area where we swam in, I would say the deepest, 20 to 30 feet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's a man-made lake, which I didn't know until a couple years ago. I did a little research on it. It used to be a quarry.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know it was man-made.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
The quarry in Monroe, that's a pretty nice lake now. I mean, it's too bad the public doesn't have access to it, but...
Who was it that introduced you to that quarry?
You, I'm assuming? I don't know. I have no idea.
You don't remember?
George. No.
Yeah.
Was it George?
I remember seeing video.
Introduced him to it. What do you mean? It's like pretty evident. It's just...
When he and your mom first started dating...
Dude, I'm pretty
sure... It was a place he took you guys. There was a video of it.
Yeah, I know the video, but I was trying to think if that was George or if that was Jerry. But yeah, it would have probably been George.
Yeah, it was George.
Because I jumped off the rock thing. But now that was back when it was like only half full. Now it's completely full. It's like right at the line.
Oh, really?
Oh, dude, it's nice.
Huh. I've never actually gone swimming there.
So did you ever... So there's another quarry. Did I ever take you there? You have to drive along these railroad tracks. You'd go down... It would be... Sandy Creek Road. Do you know where that is? After Hurd, if you're heading south on North Dixie.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go down Sandy Creek Road. You would go up underneath I-75, and then there were railroad tracks. And if you turned off right before the first railroad track, you drive the service road back, probably about half a mile, and there was a quarry back in there. And you weren't supposed to be there, but certainly weren't supposed to be driving your car along the tracks to get there. But there was an awesome quarry back there too. We used to go swimming in.
Yeah, now I don't know what it is that just the fear of deep water. It has gotten worse as I've gotten older, and I've never even had an experience in the water where, something attacked me or I almost drowned or anything.
Would you? Is this so bad? Would you dive off of a pontoon boat into the water?
I would now.
You're saying we go out on Hamlin Lake, we have a pontoon, but would I jump off the boat?
Yeah, like dive down into the water. I'm not talking. Like
I've never been terribly good at diving. But I would, yeah. Okay. It's not that bad.
I was gonna say,
you can just pencil dive, go feet first.
I be thinking about it almost constantly? Yes.
I think about it too, but I still do that.
That's actually scary when you go feet first like that because you feel it with your feet first, the coldness of the depth.
Yeah.
That's a scary feeling. Like, oh shit, I'm going deep.
You just waiting for that ice cold hand to grab you.
I guess here's a good example. Hamlin Lake's one thing. Yes, it feeds into Lake Michigan, but I mean, the size of it dictates a fish can only get so big in there.
Oh, they've had huge huge muskie come out of that lake.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to run into one of those, but more so like swimming in the Great Lakes. So 3 years ago, Shirley and I went up to the UP, and we went to Presque Isle State Park, and there's this area called the Black Rocks on Lake Superior, and everybody, it's a thing up there. People jump off the rocks into the lake. Now, Lake Superior is like 40 some degrees, I think, year round.
Year round,
it's cold,
fucking freezing.
But we were up there, and I was like, man, that looks like fun. I'd always wanted to jump off rocks into water because you remember up at Wakamata when Greg was going to do it? That day we took the wave runners over to the other shore. And there was a cliff edge, and he was going on and on how he was going to do it, and ultimately he decided not to. And I remember being disappointed because I'd like to see that.
Must not have been drinking.
So
I feel like if he was drinking, he probably had done it.
So we went up on.
Joel's like, I'd like to see that. That way, when I shit my pants in the backseat of his car, he ain't going to threaten me.
That car eventually was my car.
So yeah. Anyway, to answer your question, I would because I jumped off those black rocks, and it was probably a 12 to 15 foot drop. And it was fun, but yeah, the whole time it's going through my head, and the water was so shockingly cold. Literally, when I hit the water, I had to remind myself not to take an inhale of breath. So So yeah, I would still do it. I mean, when we go out to Ludington, I swim and all that, but it's always in my mind.
Did I ever tell you that story about in South Dakota with Greg jumping off a cliff?
I don't think so.
Dude, we went. It was a man-made. It was an old city that they dammed off.
Okay.
And they made it into a lake.
Yeah.
So there was like a city below.
Those are interesting.
It was really cool. But they had a cliff that people were jumping off of. Greg's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it." I walk up there thinking I might do it too. Yeah, fucking right. Get up there, it's steep. I'm like, "No, thank you." Well, he goes to, as he jumps, everyone's like, "Oh!" He jumped the wrong side. They were jumping to the right. He jumped to the left. He said, as he was coming down, he could see rock. And once he hit the water, he slid up, almost like it was like a wall of rock he was sliding against. Arm was all scraped the fuck. Dude, a foot more to the left, he'd have been fucked. Cut in half.
How far was the drop?
20, 30.
Ooh.
It would do.
Yeah.
I'm jumping off a cliff. I'm going to look and make sure I'm jumping off the right
We had
part.
watched like 8 people do it. Like they just kept jumping off it and
that
climbing
part
back up
he
there.
jumped off of?
Yeah, but he jumped the wrong way.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine? Hitting rock and getting split open, and then you're probably gonna drown.
Did you guys ever see a video of a guy? He's got that. He's got one of those GoPros on him, and he jumps off this huge cliff, and he goes into the water, and there's a freaking, I don't know if it was a great white, but a huge ass shark.
Is that?
I'm pretty sure that's fake.
Yeah,
I'm almost
Is
positive.
it?
Yeah,
I
it's
was just
edited.
gonna say, I think
edited.
that's a fake video.
Oh, because I've seen some that were fake, but
I've seen a couple like that, and they've
all.
all been debunked for being bullshit.
Yeah, the timing was like, oh my god.
But that would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some good summer fun this summer. Get out and do some. Well, we're going to the beach tomorrow. You're going, aren't
going?
you? Yeah,
It's supposed to rain.
We were
It's supposed to rain tomorrow?
Well, it was. I don't know. I'd have
What
to
the
reach.
fuck?
we initially weren't going to go because Lincoln had a soccer game, but turns out his team finished in first place, so they advanced straight to the finals because this weekend's the first round of the playoffs. So suddenly tomorrow became free.
My mom wanted me to bring something up, but I got to run it through you before we talk about it. We'll get to it on a later
Really?
episode. Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't want to just put
I
don't want to be putting people's shit out there without.
Whose shit is it?
I mean, it's kind of your guys' shit.
Can't even imagine.
Just through genetics, it's kind of your shit. Let that simmer in your brains.
Guess so.
Genetics.
Heard some dirty secrets is what I heard. Dirty secrets.
You talking about inbreeding?
Yeah, you talking about inbreeding in her
But
family?
inbreeding, all right, I guess you guys are all open and
It's an
honest
open
about
secret,
it.
dude. Open secret.
Nobody inbreeds like the Adkins.
A lot of first cousins that I was not aware of that are married and or
questionable
were married
first
and had.
cousins.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever knew, but the family anthem is.
I do now.
Yeah.
I was wondering why you guys had webbed toes.
So I've actually got a story regarding the Adkins and inbreeding. So Brian, John's friend, who used to be his boss, he was having one of his parties, and I was there, and I went out in the garage to go get he has like a store like refrigerator type thing with like beer and stuff in it. So I went to go get one. And there's a girl out there, she's real anime, and she's going on, and they're talking about inbreeding. She's like, I'm telling you, man, no one inbreeds more than my family, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa. No. You just called me out here, girl. I go, no one inbreeds more than my family. I go, okay, I come from generations of inbreeding. I go, if you look close enough, I think my fingers are even webbed. And she just like looks at me. She goes, no one inbreeds more than the Adkins. And I was like, yeah, what? Yeah. So her last name was Adkins, and she was talking about her family whose last names were Adkins.
Are you single?
We tried talking about, they were from Kentucky, but we tried talking to figure out if we knew any similar names, but I'm bad at that crap. But the funny part was I was telling Aunt Brenda this story, after it had happened, and she goes, well, what happened then? I go, well, the only thing that was logical, we started making out, which did not occur.
All right.
Maybe.
So, one thing we're going to do today, we have each picked one film that we feel is underrated. Needs a little more attention paid to it. Gentlemen, which one of you would like to kick this conversation off?
Go ahead, Jason.
All right. Well, so
how polite.
Humanitarian is how I do.
I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about this, but I did come up with two different films, but I think I'll stick with the one. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be the one that I haven't actually seen as recently, so I'm hoping it still holds up like I remember thinking it did.
Yeah.
It is The Cell from, I believe, the year 2000.
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Definitely early 2000, but I think 2000. It had Jennifer Lopez in it, of all people.
In her prime.
Vincent D'Onofrio is in the film.
Brilliant in that movie.
Great actor.
Who else is in it?
Vince Vaughn, a young Vince Vaughn.
Oh, Vince Vaughn was in it. Okay,
he's
okay. That's right.
Goes in and
yeah. So I mean, and I don't even recall. I think it got mixed reviews, but the director of the film, who I should have this on my phone, but I don't know him off the top of my head, but I don't know how his career went on to be, but I know prior to that film, he had directed music videos. And so visually, the film was really striking. So a lot of it takes place in like a dreamscape type thing. And it's all kinds of like trippy imagery and set pieces. But I mean, in the story, I think at the time people were saying, "Oh, it's a Silence of the Lambs ripped off," and does it borrow elements and from like Seven and stuff like that? Yeah, if it's any other kind.
I mean, yeah, it's in that genre.
But I kind of felt like it even took it a step further by going physically into this person's mind and the kind of dreamscapes and stuff that are present in it. I know that if I remember right. I think because it was like this movie and the other one I was going to mention was Dark City, and Roger Ebert like loved those two films, and they were not films that were like very loved as a whole by critics. I think he put them both on the top 10 of his list for that year, which was like a big shock at the time. But
what my favorite quote from that movie is?
What's that?
Maki Laki's the boogeyman. And then the kid fucking jumps up and he's got the fucking seal hands and the fucking sharp ass.
Apparently, you've seen this recently.
I've seen that movie probably 100 times. One of my favorites.
Well, wow!
I love The Cell.
I'm gonna have to watch
J-Lo
it because
is fine.
I haven't watched it. I haven't seen it in years.
Oh,
I have it on DVD somewhere.
I never actually watched it all the way through. I began watching it one night by myself.
It's a long one.
I started it late and I fell asleep. And I remember the scene with the horse, and I was like, "This is some wild shit."
Yeah, where the horse.
I fell asleep, so I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah, it's like I said, I definitely think it's like an underappreciated movie that did not get the respect it was due.
It did
back
well
in the
overseas.
Day.
Like I heard, it did really good, like in Asian countries.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know how it performed here or anything like that, but I'd have to. I should
star-studded cast.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
I might look it up as you guys are talking about yours, actually, just to see.
All right, Brandon, what do you got for us?
I also had a few that I was jumping between, but I think I'm going to go with, I don't even know if I mentioned this one to you, which you've all both probably seen it, Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon.
Stir of Echoes.
I know what you're talking about. I've never watched it.
Yeah, see, this is what I mean, because that movie came out the same year as The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And The Sixth Sense was the ghost movie of that time. So it totally got overshadowed. And, dude, I mean, I love The Sixth Sense, but Stir of Echoes is good because it's not like, in The Sixth Sense, the kid just has that ability. Yeah. Kevin Bacon's just a regular guy. He gets drunk at a party. He ends up getting hypnotized, and that's when he starts receiving, like, these ghostly messages. Like, the ghost appears to him on the couch and shit. She's freaky as fuck looking. Well, it turns out she's buried in his basement.
Nice.
His friend's kids killed her. Like, I guess they raped her. And
there you go again with the rape.
Well, that's what they did.
I mean, like the BMO said, if you're going to kill him, you might as well stick him.
Well, they
first.
went the alternate route. They raped her, and then they what? They attempted to rape her, and doing that, she was screaming. They put plastic over her face. So Kevin Bacon's character is like experienced all these things she went through, like not being able to breathe and like being really cold, and it's a really cool movie. It's definitely underrated. You know who else is in that? Is Catherine Urbe.
Yeah. Well, she was in Law and Order with Vincent D'Onofrio.
She shows a titty and an ass.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because I always thought she was kind of like underrated hot.
She's good looking.
Yeah.
She's a single tit. What are you gonna do?
One tit, huh?
Just get double vision.
I mean, once you've seen one, you can kind of
assume
what the other looks
double
like.
vision.
I like to see both.
I do too, but
like they're a pair.
Usually they're different though.
A little bit.
One's a little bigger. One's a little small.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm Go ahead,
I'm sure he put the better of the two out there for the viewing audience.
I would think.
I would.
You know what? Now that you mention that, I want to say I've seen at least part of that film, and I think I specifically watched it to see her tits. All right, I'm going in a completely different direction. Horror genre, but only loosely. 1980s pulp classic, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I've never seen it.
You gotta watch it.
I know.
Yeah, but is that really like Is that really fit the category of what we're talking about?
Here's my argument.
Let's hear it.
Not every movie sets out to win an Academy Award.
Right.
Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
I've seen it a couple times.
I mean, for what the movie, if you can just watch it for what it is, it's a comedic, almost absurdist horror film. The puppetry is awesome. It is funny. It's one of those films where it's like you either appreciate it for what it is, because it doesn't pretend to be anything it's not. I think it is an awesome movie. So anyone who enjoys comedy, science fiction, certainly horror, you got to check out Killer Clowns. An awesome soundtrack.
I've seen clips from it, but
so my argument would be that I think it's gets about as much revere as it should.
Maybe
it's a cult classic.
Maybe in modern times it's kind of been rediscovered.
Well,
but when it was released, and probably for a good 20 some years, it was one of those B-rate horror movies.
Those effects were state of the art, motherfucker.
Well, what I'm just wondering is what was the context in which it was released? Because I'll bring up a movie,
the 1980s, when the horror movies all featured, the puppetry and.
But I'm just wondering, was it meant to be scary? Was it, or was it?
I think it was meant to be scary, funny.
It's not really scary.
It's not like you're not watching Killer Clowns from Outer Space and having nightmares unless you're a young child.
Right.
I mean, there's literally a fight scene between a biker and a shorty, and shorty punches the dude's head off. So no, it's not exactly a horror movie that takes itself too seriously. But that's what I love about it.
So the reason I bring that up is there was a movie that was released in the late 90s called Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Which was completely misunderstood by most of the viewing audience, which most of the viewing audience just took as a straightforward narrative and, a special effects action movie, which is what it is. But
it's so good, though.
People missed the satire in the movie, which was completely, the point of the filmmaker was that it was a satire of, the way we conduct ourselves and our foreign affairs.
Based on a book?
By I'm sure I've read the book. I can't think of the author at the top of my head though.
Yeah, the Starship Troopers is fucking amazing, dude. Johnny Rico.
So I've looked
American
up.
Badass.
I've taken a little bit of time here, and I've looked up The Cell. I've gone to Rotten Tomatoes, and it had like a 50-some% positive rating, which
Shameful.
is not good. I did look up Roger Ebert, though, does declare it one of the best films of the year, and there's several other like glowing reviews of people that seem to have like appreciated it.
It's too smart for the regular people.
In terms of numbers,
please.
it looks like it only did around about $65 million US. So I don't know what it cost to make that film back then, but I can't imagine that it made much of a profit.
It's one of those films. It's a highbrow horror film, and that's going to miss a wide swath of Americans.
I would almost call it a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
I mean, because really, literally, most of the movie is spent inside that guy's mind.
Yeah.
45% tomato meter, actually.
Damn, that's fucking ridiculous. I have no faith in that because
people like to think when they watch movies.
How could you watch that movie and not like that?
A lot of people. I mean,
I would say in general, like I agree for the most part with like overall reviewers, but there's some that I disagree with, and that's my definition of like what I'm thinking of is like because it didn't get.
Well, you
it
look
wasn't
up
well received.
Stir of Echoes on there and see what its rating is. I'm kind of curious now, and then you might as well look up Killer Clowns too.
So the Cell box office US was $61.3 million. Yeah, but it came out August of 2000. I remember seeing that in the theater.
Remember when I got that DVD player? When I first bought that?
Yeah.
And the Cell, I think, was like it was in my top 10 of first ones I bought. I used to get my whole paycheck and go to Media Play.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was some superstar, like $400 in movies. Don't mind if I fucking do.
Like any of you girls want to have your clit licked through saran wrap?
All right, so Stir of Echoes came out in 1999.
It came out in 99?
That's what it says here.
I thought it came out earlier than that.
Did you know there's a sequel?
Yeah, I've seen it with Rob Lowe. Not bad, actually. It's actually acting's a little shaky other than Rob Lowe, but good storyline.
So Stir of Echoes box office in the U.S. was $21.1 million.
Damn.
So yeah, definitely not a hit, but I don't know how much they spent. A lot of those horror movies they don't spend a whole lot of money on, but 21 still seems pretty low.
There wasn't a whole lot of effects in it, so
Yeah, but you've got what's his name?
You got
Kevin
catering
Bacon.
costs.
Kevin Bacon
You
gonna
gotta
cost
pay
you some
Kevin
money.
Bacon.
But then let's see here. In terms of reviews, it fared better than The Cell. It came up at 67% on the tomato meter.
Still not great, but
Now, Killer Clowns from Outer Space,
Yeah,
I
let's
think
see.
I obviously have reviews from back when it came out.
22%.
Clowns.
I mean, see, that's the thing. I didn't see it when I was younger. I saw that just a couple years ago.
Right.
It
And
came
it
out
was one of
in
those movies,
88.
yeah, where I was like, I should have watched this years ago.
It's like in the
So-
same vein of the trauma movies, like
Somewhat.
Toxic Avenger.
I mean, it's
better.
definitely a
It's of
step
better
up from
quality
Trauma.
than
But
Trauma. So, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, again, this tomato meter, it's saying 25 reviews, 76%, but a lot of these reviews are going to be like, reviews
Joel.
from
They're gonna be Joel on there.
more recent viewings of it.
right.
It doesn't have any information for what it grossed. I don't even know if they'd have a way to get that information anymore from a film that old, 1988. And I'm sure it was just a small release,
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
Good shit.
All right. Now, if you guys have out there listening, if you've got any films you think are underrated, send them to us. You hit that email up, vagrantsandvandals@gmail.com. That is vagrants, N, the letter N, vandals@gmail.com. Now, fellas, you know I love me some weird news stories.
Straight up.
Got a couple today. Interesting tidbits. Teased them a bit, one of our recent episodes. Here's a story out of Missouri. I want to see if you guys react the way I reacted when I first
Missouri?
read it. Missouri, if you're a hick.
The Show Me State.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Ooh, can't play. Don't remember that.
You won't go to Missouri.
Nun's body intact
Oh.
4 years after death draws people to Missouri monastery. Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster's body was exhumed and found to be, quote, incorrupt, a sign of holiness and later
course.
justification for sainthood. Now listen to this. This story broke late last month. Hundreds of people in the U.S. have traveled to a monastery in a small Missouri town to view a nun's body that seemingly has no signs of decay 4 years after her death. Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster was the founder of the Benedictine Sisters of Mary, Queen of the Apostles, a monastery in Gower, Missouri, about an hour outside of Kansas City. Lancaster's body was exhumed on May 18th, so it could be moved to its final resting place in a monastery chapel. 4 years after her death in 2019, reported the Catholic News Agency. But when the coffin was opened, Lancaster's body was intact with almost no signs of decay. Lancaster's body had never been embalmed and was buried in a cracked wooden coffin that exposed her corpse to moisture and debris, news media reported. We were told by cemetery personnel to expect just bones in the conditions, as Sister Wilhelmina was buried without embalming and in a simple wood coffin. One of the sisters, who asked to be anonymous, told Newsweek. Exhumers found a layer of mold on Lancaster's body, likely due to condensation in the cracked coffin, reported Catholic News Agency. But little of Lancaster's corpse or her habit decomposed while she was buried. In Catholicism, bodies that defy the decomposing process are known as incorrupt, which is a sign of holiness and later justification for sainthood. The process for sainthood has not been started for Lancaster, said the Bishop Johnston, the Diocese of Kansas City, St. Joseph, in a statement. More than 100 bodies have been incorrupt, reported Catholic News Agency. Apparently they was going around and checking. But Lancaster is likely the first black person in the U.S. to be found in an incorruptible state.
No,
Black don't crack, even
I
death.
was going to say, I find that shocking because Asian don't raisin and black don't crack. So I
heard
can't
Asian
believe
Asian raisin.
Asian
one.
don't raisin, man. I didn't
never
hear that
heard
till I moved out or till I started working in Ann Arbor.
We think she is the first African-American woman to be found incorrupt, said Mother Cecilia, the abscess for the monastery, to Catholic News Agency. Cecilia was the first person to examine the coffin as head of the monastery. Some experts have said it isn't uncommon for bodies to remain well preserved in the first few years after death, even if they are not embalmed. In general, when we bury a body at our human decomposition facility, we expect it to take roughly 5 years for the body to become skeletonized, Nicholas Pasquala told Newsweek. Passaquala is an associate professor and director of forensic anthropology at Western Carolina University. That is without a coffin or any other container or wrapping surrounding the remains. So for this body, which was buried in a coffin, I personally don't find it too surprising that the remains are well preserved after only 4 years. Still, news of the exhumation spread via social media, with hundreds traveling to Missouri to view Lancaster's body. Lori Rosebro, a resident of Overland Park, Kansas, told USA Today in an email that the viewing was, quote, an incredibly rare opportunity to see, quote, the hand of God at work. Quote, not many people can say they touched and prayed over the body of a saint, wrote Rosebro. I believe that the thousands of us that made the trip to Gower, Missouri this week can now say that we have. Royce Hood, who hosts a Catholic radio show, traveled with his wife, Elise, and their 6 kids to view Lancaster's body. The drive from the Peoria, Illinois home
hell of a family vacation.
Let's go, kids.
was over 5 hours. I feel like people are like, wow, we need this right now, Hood said to Catholic News Agency. There's so much chaos and darkness in the world. I think God is giving us little graces to remind us of what is to come, and that's waiting for us. Lancaster's body will be moved. It was moved on May 29th and encased in glass in the chapel where visitors can continue to view it according to the monastery website.
Well, it's going to start to decay eventually, right?
Fellas, what do you make of this?
I mean, my first inclination is perhaps there was an overzealous priest who was missing his favorite nun, and he's been just digging her up every few days. And
why would they do that when they have the little boys?
Well, you know,
Aww.
sometimes you like it a little more loosey-goosey, you know? So if you got a corpse rotting, I guess it's a little, I don't know, you switch it up.
So here's the thing.
Oh, you just going to poo-poo my theory right out of hand? All right, fine, I rescind it. It was a cheap joke at the Catholic Church.
My first question is, why did they bury her? Why did the Catholic Church, which is perhaps the richest institution in the world, bury her in one of their servants in nothing more than a cheap wood coffin? And why didn't they just bury her where she was supposed to be buried in the first place? Why'd they have to exhume her 4 years later?
Yeah, I read this story back when it happened a few weeks ago, but I don't recall the answer to that. But in terms of the just wooden plain casket or whatever, that might be because they take, like vows of, living a very modest and very meager lifestyle. So I'm assuming that would be the reason for that.
Yes, because the Catholic Church is all about humility.
Yeah. I would think it's
no
more
pageantry there.
More plausible she's a fucking vampire, and that's why she's in a shitty wooden box in the ground, why she's perfectly preserved. And now they just woke her up.
Now here's the thing.
I thought I went dark.
I saw pictures. Now, while the body was much better preserved than I would expect a body to be after 4 years, these people's claims of no decay are utter bullshit. One of her hands looks like a shriveled raisin. And in the time since they exhumed her, they have covered her face and hands in wax. So the logic just okay, let's say you're a devout believer and you're like, wow, this is
I'm not.
An incorruptible.
I'm not.
Okay, but let's look at it from their perspective. An incorruptible body. And the first thing they do, well, we better preserve this.
Yeah,
I mean, so do you have faith that this is an act of God or not? Man, your actions tell me you don't. Because why would you need to alter it?
Well, and why,
Right, exactly.
if this was a show of God's abilities and bestowing this great honor upon this woman who did his works on the earth, why would it have any kind of degradation to
Right.
it? I mean, why wouldn't wouldn't it be a clear-cut display if it was just perfect,
Right.
the way her soul left the body? I mean, that would be my question.
Do we know that she didn't look like that during life? I mean, do
Did
we
it make,
have a before
Did it make
picture?
mention of a shriveled hand?
She always just had that shriveled hand always.
That priest comes by. He's like, she's got that shriveled little hand. She's got that perfect grip. I just fit in it so good. Oh.
Well,
My dick look huge in that little hand.
Whenever I hear these stories, we're talking about, especially when we're talking about an institution like the Catholic Church, which has been plagued by scandals through the centuries, I need independent verification. Also, one of your own people dug her up, made the find, and now you're releasing it. Has anybody with a medical background who's maybe, employed by the state or anyone other than the Catholic Church examined this body.
They're all from the Archdiocese.
Oh, you want to turn it over to the deep state?
Yes, that's what I want to do.
You want to turn it over to the deep state?
I want to turn it over to anyone other than the people who have a monetary gain from this story being proliferated.
I think those are some libtard questions we got coming from you now, son.
I think it's possible that she was embalmed in the first place. Because if no one's examined the body...
That'd be a hell of a mistake.
Or she's a vampire. The undead.
So you're saying
that
the church is actually lying about this.
Possibly.
That's nefarious.
Yeah, possibly.
No, I don't believe that.
Dude,
I don't think they had her embalmed and they're like, we're going to dig this old bat up in a few years.
Dwindling attendance across the country.
You can't argue that.
Organized religion's not going to be a thing as we know it for too much longer. By the end of our lives, I don't think there's going to be organized religion like we've known it.
I think it'll shift. And you think when you talk about the traditional religions, Judeo-Christian, that I think is diminishing. But I do believe there are other religious modalities that people follow, and I think those might become more popular and hopefully not in the same way regarding institution wise and becoming this monolith of power.
Well, listeners, rest assured that we'll do everything we can here at Vagrants and Vandals Radio to investigate this, and we'll let you know if there's any updates on Sister Wilhelmina.
We are going to have Brandon. We're going to send him out there to investigate the.
Sounds good. Let's go.
We got to see, is she? What do they call her?
Incorruptible.
Incorruptible. I want to know if her insides are incorruptible, Brandon. Can you check? Can you check for the integrity of this woman's rectal vault and see if it remains incorruptible?
You can use Saran wrap.
Well, I planned on it. It wasn't going to be an oral examination, anyways.
We'll give you we'll give you the dental dam.
All right, boys, we got another story here. This one out of Florida.
Oh Lord,
Florida.
Oh man,
we mentioned this a few weeks ago.
My wife's from Florida.
April's from Florida originally.
Yep,
Lakeland.
Oh.
Every time they fucking mention anything, we're watching a TV show, they're like, hey, that's where I was born. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. How many times are you going to tell me? I've been with you for fucking 13 years. I know where you're born. Place is a shithole. Always going to be a shithole. Just kidding, Lakeland. You guys are great.
All right.
A lot of inbreeding down there, too.
Matt
fit right in.
Was teaching down there. He might even still live there. I don't know.
He still play guitar?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he does.
He was always a talented guitar player.
We've kind of fallen out of touch. He's married with kids, and
I thought he was kind of effeminate.
Wow.
Thanks for giving me more shit to believe.
Random fucking thing just to bring up about.
That's insulting to call someone effeminate?
A bit. When Jason said his first and last name, mentioned he's married with kids, where he lives. And you're just like, I don't know if I always questioned his sexuality.
I just thought he didn't say that. I just thought he was
most normal straight men don't like to be referred to as effeminate.
I'm sorry, man. If you hear this, I'm sorry, man. It was just my perception at the time. I was on a lot of drugs and I was drinking a lot.
Are you afraid that maybe he and you had a little fun while you were in that altered state?
What's going on?
No.
You got some admissions to make? Red Rocket.
He's like, I heard you like Dave Matthews.
Brandon,
Pull that dick out.
Why are you deep throwing that microphone right now?
Okay, let's get to the story. Florida scientist resurfaces after living underwater for a record 100 days. This is out of Key Largo. A university professor who spent 100 days living underwater at a Florida Keys lodge for scuba divers resurfaced Friday and raised his face to the sun for the first time since March 1st. Dr. Joseph Deturi set a new record for the longest time living underwater without depressurization during his stay at Jules Undersea Lodge, submerged beneath 22 feet of water in a Key Largo lagoon. The diving explorer and medical researcher shattered the previous mark of 73 days, 2 hours, and 34 minutes set by two Tennessee professors at the same lodge in 2014. It was never about the record, Deturi said. It was about extending human tolerance for the underwater world and for an isolated, confined, extreme environment. Deturi, who also goes by the moniker Dr. Deep Sea.
Dr. Deep Sea?
You can probably look up his OnlyFans.
Wow.
Hey, Dr. Deep Sea here. He's a University of South Florida educator who holds a doctorate in biomedical engineering and is a retired U.S. naval officer. Guinness World Records lists Deturi as the record holder on its website after his 74th day of underwater last month. The Marine Resources Development Foundation, which owns the lodge, will ask Guinness to certify Deturi's 100-day mark, according to foundation head Ian Koblick. Deturi's undertaking, dubbed Project Neptune 100, was organized by the Foundation. Unlike a submarine, which uses technology to keep the inside pressure about the same as at the surface, the Lodge's interior is set to match the higher pressure found underwater. The project aimed to learn more about how the human body and mind respond to extended exposure to extreme pressure in an isolated environment, and was designed to benefit ocean researchers and astronauts on future long-term missions. During the 3 months and 9 days he spent underwater, Deturi conducted daily experiments and measurements to monitor how his body responded to the increase in pressure over time. He also met online with several thousand students from 12 countries, taught a USF course, and welcomed more than 60 visitors to the habitat. The most gratifying part about this is the interaction with almost 5,000 students and having them care about preserving, protecting, and rejuvenating our marine environment, Deturi said. He plans to present findings from Project Neptune 100 at November's World Extreme Medicine Conference in Scotland.
It'd be a lot more impressive if he wasn't in a fucking lodge and he was just in the water with a tank.
He'd die from exposure.
It'd be a lot more impressive. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think his body would be
impressive if he
incorrupt.
went that long just sitting in the
Hey,
water.
ladies, prepare yourself. Dr. C's gonna be taking it deep.
Comes out, he looks like a giant nutsack. He's all fucking shriveled.
So I did read this again. I read some of this story a while back now. What were they? They were testing his blood and stuff like that to check his, his levels, his body levels. It's my
One thing I read in the first article is that he felt that a prolonged period of increased pressure could have a whole array of medical benefits, like slowing the aging process, healing you, like physically, emotionally, mentally. No word yet.
He's like, the loads I was shooting down there, 3 times the fucking size and 4 times the distance.
Was he subject to that pressure though? He's inside of a
Yes, I just read in the article.
Unpressurized though.
Instead of matching the surface pressure like a submarine,
Right.
it was the pressure of the water 22 feet under.
Huh.
So not terribly
Okay.
deep, but I mean, certainly made a difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you guys ever go into something like putting aside your responsibilities as employees somewhere and as fathers and spouses?
I'm gonna fuck about my job.
Would you put yourself in isolation for an extended period of time just for the experience?
For how long he's talking?
Yeah, say how long
I
I'm
don't
talking.
know. All right, I'll put it this
And
way.
now let's say this guy. I
Like
wouldn't
a
call
month?
this isolation. They said he had 60 visitors.
Yeah, he had. Yeah,
This motherfucker's seen more people than I
Conjugal
do. and
visits,
I'm
he was
not
having a
22
good time.
feet down.
he's like, yeah, I welcomed all my students to Dr. Deep Sea's laboratory.
Definitely don't call that isolation what he did.
Okay, would you? Let's start with this. Would you guys go in one of those like sensory deprivation tanks and float?
Yeah, I'd
So-
like to actually do that.
Yeah, I would
I've
too.
thought about that a lot. I would. I just hope I wouldn't freak out though.
Yeah, because I've read people can hallucinate
Yeah,
while they're in
Well,
there.
that's the thing. And then the better question is, would you go in one of those tanks if you had taken a hallucinogenic?
Nah.
Only if
not
I
the
was being
first
monitored. Like if somebody there that I trusted was going to pull me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time. But even when they pull you out, if you're on shrooms or hallucinogenic, you're still gonna be freaking out. Your
Well,
trip's not
sure.
just gonna end. You're just gonna be all
Right.
disoriented.
Well, basically, if I've got someone there who has some medical knowledge and won't let me hurt myself or
Right.
go running stark
Drown.
naked out into the street and get hit by a car or something. Yeah.
Didn't stop me.
No.
That's right. River
You
Raisin.
weren't even on shrooms.
River Raisin.
Probably just a little drunk.
River
Do
Raisin.
you remember that night you had to drop? You had to go piss.
Yeah.
And then we're all sitting there drinking. You like realized mid drink that you had to go drop the next morning.
That was. I don't even think we had furniture. I remember us all just sitting on the floor. And I'm sitting there drinking a bottle of Boone's Farm.
Yeah.
And I remembered. Yeah.
That's damn funny.
Oh, yeah, that sucked. Yep.
What's that like having to go? I'd be sequestered for your urine to make sure you're not.
Well,
Doing things you're not supposed to be
actually
doing.
was a further indictment of the capitalist system we live in that they make you pay for the test, but at no point did they ever actually even test me.
Damn.
They just, they pocket the money. I don't know. They don't actually spend it on the test. They know that
You're
much.
like this fucking fool.
Yeah, and then as soon as I paid,
$50, please, and a cup of urine, and just throw it in the garbage.
as soon as
leave.
court costs and fines are paid, no longer on probation. Yeah,
Never been on probation.
but back to the isolation. Well,
I haven't.
Me neither. Although, I mean, I've certainly done things that could have
Well, I didn't say that.
landed me
I
in
didn't say that.
probation.
Just I've never been on it.
Yeah.
I'm not passing judgment on the fact that you've been to
Fucking-
jail and you have a record. It is what it is, man. We all make mistakes.
You know what I like to say? You guys are goddamn amateurs.
I'm thinking back through all, because when I was a teenager, I stole a lot and I vandalized a lot.
Yeah, Joel definitely deserved to do some prison time more
Dude,
than
I
me.
drove-
some jail time, a night in jail.
I drove from River Raisin back when we were living there one night, drunk as fuck, to my mom's house. I don't remember driving. I just know I woke up in her driveway in my truck asleep, and the truck was still running.
Do you recall why you went from where you lived to your mom's?
If I had to be honest, I think it was probably food. I knew she had a stock kitchen I'd get into.
Oh my
Dude,
god!
I was so drunk and I had no business driving, and I still
I
did
won't.
it.
I won't drive.
Could have
if
killed
I've
somebody.
been
How
drinking.
fucking irresponsible.
Yeah, no.
But I didn't. And like a non-amateur, I didn't get caught. I made it.
Oh yeah.
The
so
only I'm trying
real
to think.
professional we're dealing with.
I think the one and only time I was caught was, of course, when our good pal Aaron ratted us out in high school
I
for
remember that
causing a bit of
scandal.
damage at his
I
cousin's
remember that
house.
scandal.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
We had to
now,
pay
yeah.
restitution for
The
that.
funniest part was when you guys were trying to act like you're figuring out who it was, and I'm like, I think it's rather obvious. You guys are like, no, he wouldn't betray us like that. I'm like, guys, come on.
Yeah,
Let's
Aaron
put-
did not admit that until
for the longest time.
years. I'm talking more than a decade later.
He's like, yeah, I
Who
rated
knows?
you out. Sorry.
He knows of the psychopathy you suffer from.
And I didn't blame him. Like I can
Well,
understand.
that was
his
the
family
thing.
was
Like
putting
he
pressure
finds
on
out
him
you
and-
guys went like physically
Yeah, we took it too
destroyed
far.
things.
We took it too far.
Yeah, Stu was like moving heavy machinery
So
around.
I was throwing around brick pavers in their front yard. We TP'd the shit out of it. Stu bent a weather vane, and then he moved a truck in their front yard, and then we stole their mailbox and threw it in the creek. Yeah, I
And
mean,
that-
we got our money's worth
You belong in
Why?
jail.
Like, why were you doing this to her? Like,
just for shits and giggles.
yeah, I mean,
That's kinda fucked
like,
up.
toilet papering somebody's like, oh, okay, whatever. You guys destroyed shit.
Yeah, no, I freely admit
And-
we took it too far.
but you had no reason to have anything against this girl.
no,
or
we
anything.
didn't. We didn't dislike Stephanie. No,
So what was wrong with you?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
exactly.
You just what were you like? It was like the fucking
we
like
were.
the strangers. You just attacked their house because it was there. Like what the fuck?
I think they got there with the intent to like TP her house, and then they're like teenage boys, so they're like got to one up
yeah,
each
it got out
other.
of control.
Well, see, that was the thing. Stu and I were on opposite sides of the house. I didn't know what he was doing. We'd all spread out to TP, and then I was like, "What else can I do?" Well, I started moving their brick pavers around, not really destroying them. I mean, they're bricks. I was just moving them.
Right.
Well, when we all went back to the car, because it was me, Richard, Mark, Stu, and
I'm surprised.
John.
I'm surprised I wasn't there because usually I'd been involved in that kind of shit.
And when I got in the car, I think Mark told me, he was like, Stu's going to move their truck. I'm like, what? And then Mark starts detailing. Mark told me then or a little later, he's like, Stu he got on top of their shed, bent a weather vane. And then next thing I know, I hear a truck fire up, and there's Stu driving it to their front door. And then he gets out. The keys
Plows
go
through the
flying.
front of the house.
Comes out laughing like a maniac. They couldn't find the keys the next day.
God.
Yeah.
that's-
So no, we had nothing against Stephanie. We TP'd her house so many times it became like a running gag.
Feels like if I could do that to someone I don't even know, imagine what I could do to someone I hate.
They terrorize this girl
Well, I
so
knew
badly
her.
that she's lived in Turkey for the last like
don't-
20
I
years.
don't think that was
Well,
what
that's-
caused it.
But she has.
But yes, I'm aware. Okay.
Might have. I think it played some part.
Should just cut their brake line.
Her parents were really nice about it.
Yeah, I know, and they're like this really old, wholesome, like farming couple. They're like
Yeah.
so sweet.
Well, it was funny that morning I woke up when I knew like I had to get in front of it.
The gig is up.
I was the only one home, thankfully. There was 2 messages on the voicemail. First one was from John, and his message went like this: Joel, the cops are at my house. Joel, and then hangs up. Second message: Hi, this is Officer so-and-so from the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. We're here for Joel Atkins. We were at your house whatever time in the morning. And I was like, shit.
Like, I'm in trouble.
So I started calling everybody, but that was one of my talents, though. I knew when when the gig was up and when it was time to like, okay, now how do we minimize the damage? So I started calling everybody, and I was like, who have you talked to? Someone ratted us out. We got to get on the same page. And I remember thinking,
Joel's like, let me look at these suspects. He's like, we've got one guy. He's cousins with them, very close. Has a pretty good sense of right and wrong.
hey, I wasn't sure that it wasn't one of us who was there that didn't rat us out. I think there may have been some suspect of Mark at the time, because Mark never wanted to do this shit. He just went along.
Folded under the pressure.
Why
You
would-
know he did.
Like, why would he go along?
He
Like-
actually ended up paying Stu's portion because Stu didn't have the restitution at the time. But I was like organizing everything because I talked to everybody and I was like, okay, I'm going to take the bullet. I'm going to call her mom. I'm going to apologize. And I was like, I'm going to admit to everything except for taking that mailbox, because technically tampering with the mail, you get in more trouble. Now, it made no sense. My my logic was simply, must have been some other group of vandals that came by that night. No, I threw that mailbox in the river.
Like, I just don't get it.
Dude, we were like, it's 18 years old. We're
It's just like,
idiots.
I
We were
stopped.
kids, 18 years old.
Yeah, we
You're
were- I
not
mean,
just a
dude,
kid.
we were always going out and vandalizing and stealing shit.
I remember I refused to take you or Stu anywhere, like drive you guys. And like, you guys would convince me. I'd be like, no, we're going to behave, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to go to Burger King. So I take them to Burger King. It was a Sunday morning. There's these old elderly couples, looks like they came from church or whatever. So Stu, for whatever reason, he just starts shouting like sexual things as loud as he can for no reason other than just to be completely obnoxious and obscene and try to get these old people going. We then leave the place. He takes his drink and he throws it up on the big windows of Burger King and it smashes all over it. Then as we're driving away, one of you guys, it must have been your drink then, I think he takes your drink, and I hear him shout, "Bombs away!" And I look, and he launches a pop out the window, and it smattered. It just busts all over the person behind his windshield.
Oh my
I was
God,
like, all right,
dude.
yeah, I'm never taking you guys
Never
anywhere
again.
The universe has order and it has chaos. Stu was a disciple of chaos. He was an agent of chaos. And when the two of us, like, we were like an out of control tag team. When we were together, we needed somebody to like rein us in because we weren't very good at reining each other in. Now, coming to the end of the episode, BMO, we've mentioned it several times. It's time for you, and the time we have left, just a couple minutes here, to air out your beef with the Gooder guys.
I mean, this is one of those things where I feel pretty strongly in the fact that I'm right, because
You usually do.
I participated in their farcical fucking contest and provided quality material, and they never followed through.
Now, for context, this was August of 2016, so some 7 years ago now, and BMO is still
And
butthurt.
they seem a little smug to me, to be honest.
Ooh, smug.
I noticed some smugness
Throwing down the
when
word
the last time
smug
I talked to
at
them.
Tony and Jeremy's feet.
if that's their fucking name.
So what would rectify this situation?
The goddamn prize and an apology.
And an apology. Okay, well, Tony, Jeremy, BMO has stated his beef with you, and he has stated what would rectify the situation. So, fellas, Gooder guys, will you make this situation right?
I'm sure they're going to say they will, and they never will. So
Oh, damn.
That
You're
seems-
kind of poisoning the well here.
Seems to be their MO. So
Okay.
Damn.
Wow. Okay. Well, now, on a future episode, one thing we're going to dig into, we've talked about this in the past, that I find very interesting. It's a cryptid in Michigan known as the Michigan Melonheads, based in the Saugatuck area. That's near Lake Michigan.
say that again.
Saugatuck?
Soggy Tuck.
Saugatuck.
Soggy Tuck.
Yeah.
All right,
You got that
I
one?
got it.
Okay.
Never heard that before.
You ever heard of soggy?
Taking some great restraint on my part right now. Some great restraint.
I knew it was.
So, until next time, be you vagrant or be you vandal, all rogues and rascals welcome here. I said that backwards, but you get the gist.